Man, remember what things were like a week ago? I mean, let's just take a quick look at the schedule coming up here over the next few games. Oh. Oh no. Yeah, I'd buckle in. This losing streak could be going on for a while. I mean, who is that idiot anyway, taking the Kraken lightly? Oh. Oh, that was me, wasn't it? Ah, screw it. Sometimes it feels good to be wrong. Oh, so very, very good to be oh so very, very wrong. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R for a third Seattle Kraken win in 4 games. And not just any 4 games at that. 4 games against 4 of the best teams in the league, coming off of that woeful 6-game losing streak that we're just going to forget happened. And it's also a bounce back win for the Kraken, who had just been shut out a day before for the first time in franchise history at the hands of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this wasn't going to be an easy bounce back game. Not only had the Kraken have yet to win either game of a back-to-back, but the Florida Panthers, outside of already being a good team, were also off to a historically good start at home with an NHL record-tying 11-0 start at their home rink. But do you know who else is familiar with winning games in that arena? Yep, it's Chris Driedger. As expected, with Grubauer getting the first start of the back-to-back, not to mention the fact that it was Driedger's return to his old home in Florida, he does get the start in this one. But that wasn't the only change to this lineup from what we're used to, as Riley Sheahan is back up from the AHL, again with Jarnkrok's injury, and back in the lineup for this one, as well as Will Borgen finally getting his first start for the Kraken, again with Gio out, and they put Lauzon on the bench for this one. And while we're on the subject, I do have to say that I thought this was a long time coming with Borgen finally getting his first start for the Kraken. I thought that he actually had a pretty good preseason for them, and with how the defense had been playing, making mistakes left and right for the early part of this season, I'm surprised that it took them this long to finally give him at least his first look. As the game gets started, less than a minute in fact, I think it was 25 seconds after puck drop, it's a Kraken power play. I had you there for a second, didn't I? I mean, I don't know if there's any of you who watch these and don't watch the games, but if there are, I bet you were expecting me to say there was an early Florida goal. After all, that has been the trend for this team, especially on the road as we've talked about, but no, it's a Kraken power play. That having been said, they do make it pretty interesting coming the other way on this Seattle power play, as the first 2 big chances on it come for the Florida Panthers on a 2-on-1 and then a free breakaway. Fortunately, Driedger is up to the task early and makes a couple of big saves to bail Seattle out. The second save in particular on the Huberdeau breakaway was an especially nice one, as it does actually end up sneaking into the 5-hole past the left leg, but Driedger's able to swing his right leg around and keep the puck out of the net. The Kraken stumble their way through the rest of this power play up until the last few seconds, when some nifty hands from Donskoy gets the puck through 3 defenders and then finds Eberle crossing on the other side. Eberle buries it into the back of the net, and the Kraken, with 3 seconds left on the power play, get the goal, the power play with yet another point, and it's 1-0 Kraken. It might not be a conventional power play goal, but it is a very nice play from Donskoy and some defense on the part of the Panthers that reminds us Kraken fans of what we were seeing our team do just about a week ago, as they completely forget about the Kraken leading goal scorer coming down the backside in Eberle, who gets his 10th of the season. And wouldn't you know it, but wait, what is this? Is this a 1-0 lead early in the first period for the Kraken? It is, isn't it? I haven't seen one of those in a long time. As we do finally get to some 5-on-5 play, it becomes quickly apparent that this game is going to have an entirely different feel to it than the one last night against the Lightning. That game was a much more controlled, slower defensive game, while this one is a very fast-paced game that's back and forth from one end of the ice to the other, with both teams getting good scoring chances. Which, it has to be said, is kind of surprising and almost even impressive in and of itself, considering both of these teams are on the second half of a back-to-back, with the Panthers having just played the Capitals the night before. And eventually, that pace of play and the chances that it does help create ends up paying off for one of the highest scoring teams in the league up till this point, as a shot from Thornton is tipped net front by Hornquist and into the net past Driedger. There's not a whole lot that Drieger can do about this one. It's just a nice hand-eye coordination play by Hornquist that ties up the game 7 minutes in. And it's the type of play with that net front presence, getting in the goalie's face and looking for those tip-ins that change the puck's direction at the last second, making it really hard for the goaltender to make the save, that we really just haven't seen a whole lot of from the Kraken almost at all to this point in the season. And obviously, the Kraken have still been able to score goals, except for last night against the Lightning, but they actually even recently have been doing a lot better job at having the net front presence, at least when it comes to looking for rebounds to put into the net. But as far as tipping pucks in, that's something we really just haven't seen much. And it would be nice to see a little bit more of it, or any of it at all. Shortly after this equalizing goal on the other end, Borgen finally gets involved, although it's as he misses an offside whistle and shoots the puck into the net, which doesn't go over that well with Florida, who come to immediately seek revenge for that, and it leads to traded roughing calls between him and Lomberg. That leads to 2 minutes of 4-on-4, which really doesn't end up going much of anywhere for either team. And then that leads to 2 minutes of 4-on-4, which really doesn't end up going much of anywhere for either team. That, of course, leads to 2 minutes of 4-on-4 time, which really doesn't end up going much of anywhere for either team. And then coming out of the 4-on-4 time, the Kraken think to themselves, that whole tipping the puck in front of the net thing, that was a pretty neat trick. Maybe we should try that. Yeah, what the heck? Let's give that a try. It's a bomb from Alexiak up top that glances off of Donato's stick in front of the net and through Spencer Knight's 5-hole into the back of the net to give the Kraken back the lead. It's 2-1. And wouldn't you know, tipping the puck in front of the net is the reason this goes in, and it turns out it works. Donskoy also ends up getting an assist on this goal, already his second of the game, although it does have to be said that this assist wasn't quite as pretty as his first one, as he ends up getting it because the pass from Susi that ends up on Alexiak's stick just glances off of Donskoy's stick as he whiffs on the shot. So yes, it ends up going off of his stick to Alexiak, who then shoots it into the goal off of Donato. So he is the second to last person that touches it, and that's how you get the assist, but yeah, it's definitely not one you write home about. I mean, what can you say? When it comes to scoring goals, at least right now, the guy seems to have the worst puck luck in the history of mankind. Or the Seattle Kraken at the very least. But at least he can pick up an assist in just about any possible way you can imagine. From there, at least for the most part, the Kraken do pretty much control the rest of the first period, although Drieger does have to make a couple of pretty big saves as things go on to keep this game 2-1 going into the first intermission. And then coming out of it as the second period gets started, it's another early Seattle power play. And as far as how it's executed, this is a much better looking power play than the first one. The Kraken have a lot better control and are much more consistent with pressure in the offensive zone. Of course, as things go, the first power play, which was ugly for the vast majority of it, does find the back of the net, while this one, the closest they get is a puck off of the post that stays out. Then 7 minutes into the first period, it's Larson with a beauty of a pass to Gord, open coming down the backside with a wide open net, and he misses it! Oh, he missed it! You can't miss those! Oh, Gord of all people. And even Gord cannot believe that he missed this one, as he goes to celebrate for a second off of his stick, then realizes that it's going wide back the other way across the net and behind Knight. The Panthers dodge a bullet here as it stays 2-1 and Gord's kicking himself on the bench. Florida responds with a couple of very good shifts, getting a lot of pressure and a few good chances of their own, but Drieger is having none of it against his old team. Then McCann and Donskoy both get very good chances going the other way. Knight is able to shut both of those down as the pace of play continues to pick up more and more over a long period of time without a whistle. Eventually, Drieger does make another save and catches the puck to stop play. The producer in the truck breathes a sigh of relief as he no longer has to worry about where the heck he's going to fit the ads into. And the period goes on, but the pace of play remains the same. Tanev barely misses another open net as he just can't quite reach the puck crossing in front of it. And then towards the end of the period, Alexiak gets caught for a high stick, and it's to the penalty kill for the Kraken, which, after having a few games of slip-up, has started to look strong once again over the last couple. and they do so again here, having a very, very good shutdown kill on this one. And after all that, and all the scoring chances that we saw at both ends of the ice over the course of this period, in one of the fastest paced periods that the Kraken have seen all season, the scoreboard somehow remains the same. It's still 2-1 Kraken going into the third period. And this time, the Panthers are able to stay out of the penalty box early, and in fact, they're the ones that come out of the gates hot with all sorts of pressure in the Kraken defensive zone. But the first good scoring chance doesn't end up coming for them until about 3 minutes into the period, when they're still in the offensive zone, and a good pass from behind the net finds Tippett wide open out in front, just a few feet away from Drieger, and Drieger makes a spectacular save to keep this one out and keep the Kraken lead still 2-1. Tippett cannot believe that Drieger robs him of this one. Shortly thereafter, Appleton takes a shot off the ankle and goes down hard in a lot of pain. Eventually, he does make it to the bench, but he is clearly in a lot of discomfort. And I know at least I was a little bit worried that this was going to be him with just a couple of games back, going back to the injured list for another couple of games, as he just couldn't seem to catch a break. And look, I'm no doctor, but do you know what, at least to me, seems to be a good way to help heal a minor injury off of an unfortunately placed block shot? Watching your buddies score goals. And for Appleton, that's just what happens here, as Gord makes a great play to steal the puck on the forecheck just in front of the Florida net, and his shot takes a big save from Spencer Knight to keep out of the net. But Eberle is there to pick up the rebound, and an absolute beauty of a backhand shot finds the back of the net, and the Kraken go up 3-1. It's Eberle's second goal of the game, and still team leading 11th now on the season. And wouldn't you know it, but a couple of minutes later, it's Appleton back on the ice. He gets on a free breakaway and just barely puts the puck over the top corner, missing the net and his first goal in a Kraken uniform. Still though, it's good to see that he's okay. And a couple minutes later, he almost gets another chance at that first goal, as he and Johansson get past most of the Florida defense. Johansson's shot is saved by Knight, but rebounds across the other side of the ice to Appleton, but just past him, which ends up preventing what would have been an easy goal for Appleton to put into the empty net. Although, I guess I shouldn't say too easy considering what happened with Gord, but yeah, it still would have been an easy goal. And then again, on what I think was still the same shift, if not it was the very next one, Appleton's in alone on the forecheck and makes a very nice play in front of the Florida net to almost steal the puck and get another good scoring chance. This time, Florida is able to defensively keep the puck from getting too much in Appleton's control like they did with Gord, and they dodge another Appleton bullet as he was having an absolutely fantastic third period. Meanwhile, as all this was happening, at the other end of the ice, especially as we got later on in the third period, the Kraken defense was absolutely locking things down, really not giving Florida much of anything to work with, and not giving them hardly any good scoring chances. Sure, they were still getting some shots off on net, but the Kraken defense is keeping them completely to the outside and along the boards, making sure that Drieger has as good a look as he possibly can at any shots that do come his way. As we get to the final few minutes, this relentless defensive pressure from the Kraken and their ability to make sure Florida didn't get too much control of the puck for very long prevents Spencer Knight from getting to the bench for quite a period of time, as it looked like they were trying to pull him right around 5 minutes, but he doesn't end up getting to the bench until about 4 minutes left in the third. But even that would end up proving to be a bit premature, as just seconds after he gets to the bench and Florida gets their sixth man on the ice, it's Alexiak from behind the Kraken net who gets the puck, lofts it over everybody, it slides down the ice and into the open net to make it 4-1 Kraken, and for Alexiak, his first goal for the Kraken. Seattle is able to finish off the last 3.5 minutes of this game to win it 4-1, again handing the Panthers their first home loss of the season, after that historic 11-game start that they had, tying the NHL record for home wins to open up a season. And of course, that first loss comes against a Kraken team who, coming into this game, was 1-7-1 on the road. For Drieger, in his revenge game, returning to his old home and wearing what looks to me like a new mask. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that was a new mask for him, which I have to say I actually liked quite a bit. The middle of it with the baby blue, I'm not too crazy about, but the sides of it, especially with that nod to the Metropolitans, I thought was pretty cool. Either way, as far as his performance in the game, he gets the first star, saving 33 of 34 shots, and with not too big of a sample size, easily his best game in a Kraken uniform, as he is lights out in this one. Eberle, of course, with his 2 goals, does end up getting the second star. Hornquist for the Panthers gets the third. Alexiak, obviously, I think had a pretty good game as well, but to me, as far as especially guys that didn't end up on the score sheet, I again think that Borgen had a really good first game in a Kraken uniform, at least in the regular season. He played pretty well as Appleton, I think, made a pretty big difference, especially in the third period. He still is just trying to figure out how to consistently put points on the board, again, having missed a lot of time due to that injury. And for the team as a whole, it has to be said, this may very well be their most complete game of the season. I know we've said that a couple of times before, but I still think it's true with this one, even after the games that they had against DC and Carolina. In this one, they were able to keep up with a very fast-paced Panthers team who was trying to push this game faster than the Kraken could handle, but they managed to keep up the pace, and then when they needed to in the third period, absolutely locked it down on defense, preventing that fast-paced Panthers offense from getting much of anything going in the offensive zone, really playing a lot like what we saw the Lightning do against the Kraken just the night before. And again, obviously, it also does not hurt to have a goaltender playing the way that Drieger was behind all of that. Now, here we are feeling completely different from how we did a week ago, where the team was on that 6-game losing streak with a 4-12-1 record, having just fallen down 7-0 to the Avalanche early on in a third period. Since then, whatever's happened with this team, they have done a complete 180 in just about every possible way. Again, the power play remains strong. Defensively, this team is no longer giving up those constant, almost guaranteed 5 to 6 bad mistakes a game. And the goaltending, well, the numbers pretty much speak for themselves. Maybe with the exception of the Tampa Bay game, I do think those numbers are a little bit unfair to Grubauer. That ultimately is just a much better team that outplays the Kraken more than them or Grubauer making too many mistakes. They just punished the Kraken when they did make one. I know not a ton of you watched that R&R, which is understandable. It's the first game of a back-to-back, and I only managed to get it out a couple of hours before the next game started. But ultimately, while that game on the scoreboard looks kind of ugly, I think that was really just more to do with how the Lightning played than it was how the Kraken did. And really, over the course of all 4 of these games, the team has looked very, very good. They just do get outplayed in one of the 3. That having been said, after how we were feeling a week ago, looking at this schedule with DC, Carolina, Tampa Bay, and then Florida, the fact that they got 1 win, much less 3, is a very, very pleasant surprise. I mean, honestly, with this game in particular, especially given the opponent they were playing, I even think that saying that this is the team that those of us who were optimistic coming into the season were expecting to see is underselling it a fair amount. Yes, the defense and goaltending were both fantastic, which is something that we were looking to see based on the roster, but the offense was also very, very good in this game, keeping up with a Florida team that was pushing a pace that I don't think we could have expected this team to be able to keep up with. And not only were they able to keep up with it throughout the course of the game, but they were even able to push it back the other way and take advantage of the mistakes that Florida made to win the game. For the Kraken, this now brings their record up to 7-13-1 with 15 points on the season, and for one, no longer last in the Pacific Division as they jump the Vancouver Canucks by 1 point to make them last in the division, heating up that Pacific Northwest rivalry just a little bit. At least for fun anyway. But more importantly, looking at the bigger picture, there's still 60 games left in this season, and if this team can keep playing the way they have over these last 4 and make that more the norm than what we saw in the previous 6, there's still plenty of time here for them to pull themselves out of the admittedly somewhat sizable hole that they dug for themselves over the start of the season. And they'll certainly get a chance to start doing that over these next couple of games on the road trip at Buffalo and then at Detroit, before coming home to play Edmonton and the two highest scoring players in the league. But we'll worry about that after these next two road games. If the Kraken can come back home with, say, a 9-13-1 record, I know, let's not get too carried away, but let's say they do win those two games, suddenly it doesn't look too much out of the question that they can make this interesting down the back half of the season. Oh, and one more thing that I did want to mention that I missed earlier on at the beginning of the game, with this also being a return to Florida where Wenberg played last year for him, even though it was just one season, I thought it was pretty cool that they gave him the center spot for the opening faceoff against his old team from one season ago. Again, yes, it is a small thing that would be easy to forget and overlook, but it is that type of small thing that if a coaching staff does notice it and recognizes it like they did here, it can help just bring the locker room that much closer together. Although, obviously, winning big games against good teams certainly helps with that as well. With that, I think we will wrap things up here. So if you have made it to this point in the video, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this one, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that I would appreciate you using. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game, or maybe the last 4 games and what we thought was going to be a miserable 4 games to watch and turned out to be the best 4-game stretch of the season, down in the comments section. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken!